Good evening and welcome, parents, to our Junior School Parent Forum. My name's Stephen Nelson, Head of Junior School.
And I'm Bernadette Millage, Deputy Head of the Junior School and Year 3 teacher.
Thank you for joining us for a time to pause and reflect on our remote learning at the Junior School. We really appreciate the time that you've given up tonight to be with us. No doubt you've been working, you've been helping with remote learning, or possibly doing both. So it's been a big day, so we appreciate your time midweek. This is our fourth week of remote learning, believe it or not. It certainly has been an interesting time, and we want to tonight unpack a little bit about the planning that went into the Junior School remote learning plan, talk around some of the challenges, I guess, that we've found, and also hopefully answer some of the questions. So you are able tonight to post some questions. So if you are putting a question up, if you could pop your name and also the grade or the year level of your child or children, that would be really helpful. If we don't get to your question tonight, in the fullness of this week, I'll make every effort to get back to you and contact with you via email or phone to answer specific questions. The continued partnership that we have between teachers and parents and students is really, really important, and it's been the driving force behind the success of our remote learning plan. So tonight I'm going to be asking Bernadette some questions and to talk through some of the I guess the issues with remote learning. So Bernadette, as you've been a classroom teacher and at the coalface, if you like, in Year 3 and doing an excellent job, what are some of the positives that you've found from the last 4 weeks?
Well, Stephen, I've been really impressed with the engagement of the students and the parents. It's been really great for everyone to be working together, and I've been really impressed with how everyone's settled in and really taken on board something that's really, really new to them. I mean, the Year 3s didn't even have their own email before we started this remote learning, so they've made a lot of progress and have been very positive about doing so. It's just been amazing, and so their IT skills are definitely improving. We're all learning along the way. You know, we've made mistakes and that's okay. We help each other and we learn, and it's just been really lovely to see them so positive and still see their smiling faces on the screen each morning.
I agree with those sentiments. I've had the Year 5 digital technologies and also the Year 6 math support, and I've found that their resilience and optimism, those college values that are really important, have come through in the students' work, their engagement, their willingness to ask questions, to clarify, to work together, to be respectful and responsible online. So yeah, it's been huge positives, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. My email runs hot with students asking me questions. I'm so pleased that they're happy to step up and ask when they're having a problem, just as they would if we were in the classroom. And we've also managed to fit in a little bit of fun. We had Beanie Day on Friday, we've got Pajama Day this Friday. We had our pets in our maths class yesterday to do some graphing, so it's been quite a lot of fun.
Never a dull moment.
No, not at all.
Very good. I guess as a teacher, what are you missing about not being at Murningong and the face-to-face teaching that would normally be happening in term 2?
Exactly that, the face-to-face teaching, Stephen, actually physically being in a room with the children. I mean, I love seeing them on the screen and at least I can still talk to them as if we were in the same room, but I would love to physically see them. And I'd also really like to see my colleagues, because talking to them on a screen isn't quite the same as passing them in the hallway and just sharing your day as you go along.
And we've been having staff meetings once or twice a week, actually, with our PL sessions, and it has been unusual not touching base and having that time through the day to debrief with staff, and that's something I've missed, that hustle and bustle of the Murningong staff room, but also the interaction in the playground. It's a very quiet playground at the moment. We've had up to 11 students come into school to remote learn for different reasons, and that's probably something that's worth emphasising tonight to parents, is that we are open for those families who are of essential workers or who are struggling to provide an environment for children to work remotely. I must say it's been a pleasure working with those students. We've had from prep to Year 6, but certainly a very quiet playground. So we're all missing that aspect of Murningong. It's a beautiful place to be. The maintenance men have done an amazing job, and with the changes of colour coming into autumn particularly. We just need those children back, and that noise and that hustle and bustle of learning that happened. So I agree, I've missed that certainly in the last 4 weeks.
And I must say, Stephen, I really miss the things like assembly and house services too, because while you spend a lot of time with your own class, they're the opportunities you get to share with other children throughout the school. So I'm really missing not seeing the whole school as well.
Right.
Now, can you tell me, as the head of the junior school, what are some of the challenges of remote learning from your point of view?
The challenges. Well, I guess the biggest challenge is we've got nothing really to reference this to. We haven't experienced remote learning for prolonged periods of time. I don't think any of us in our teaching careers have had come across that.
Not at all.
As parents, and obviously our students haven't experienced that. So I guess that's been a challenge from the start. I think obviously families have had individual challenges with things like connectivity. I did have an interesting story this afternoon of a family that had to drive into Penshurst for connectivity. We've had a couple of staff who don't have strong connectivity at home and have had to drive and have staff meetings from
in the car.
So that's been really, but again, it's that industriousness and problem solving. So that's been really interesting to see those challenges overcome. I think, as Dr. Hurst likes to say, the remote learning really is a rapid learning space, and our learning curves have been massive as staff, but also our students, and their adaptability is something that's really shone through. I think they've been able to rise to the challenge of new IT platforms, social distancing, if you like, being away from their friends and their sport. So that's taken a lot for children to adapt. But I must say, I've just been so impressed.
I know they've done an amazing job, haven't they?
And I guess also a challenge is that we're prepared to make intelligent failures. It's been a learning curve, and we've tweaked things and changed things as they've gone along, things like our timetables. Certainly getting regular parent feedback is fantastic. And I think certainly aligning our junior school and senior campus timetables has been a real positive and something that had to happen. I think our Specialist Wednesdays have... a timetable to structure the week was going to be a challenge, but I'm really pleased with the way things have panned out. I know, and I thank the teaching staff for their adaptability and flexibility with that. So we've certainly looked at what sort of the week might look for parents and how that might be a challenge, and having that day in the middle of the week, which honours our specialist subjects for their diversity, and it's certainly a point of difference at our school, but it also gives the teaching staff an opportunity to touch base with families and individual students. I've heard of one-to-one sessions in year one with Tommy Brown, and apparently he's quite good at Connect 4, so Mrs. Alexander says, and again, just that dialogue with the students has been fantastic. So that's been a challenge to structure the day and the weeks. I think ensuring our staff are accessible, and they have been amazingly accessible. And what I mean by that is they're working incredibly hard. I think the majority are working 80 plus hours a week to plan and to resource for the upcoming week, and to deliver lessons and to mark and assess. So for them to be accessible to parents beyond the time that they're actually face-to-face teaching with their classes, and that's been amazing as well. I think finding time to touch base with all of our families, and that's really important. So that'll be happening in the fullness of the remote learning program to get individual feedback. I think, and also I guess from an individual teaching perspective, I think we do put pressure on ourselves to deliver, and I think no pressure, no diamonds is certainly true, and the staff have been incredible.
Well, I think we just want the best for the children, as always. That's at the forefront of our minds. So, if that means more work, so be it.
It's best for and best from.
That's exactly right. So, Stephen, can you outline what else we've put in place at the juniors campus to facilitate a smooth transition to remote learning?
As I mentioned, really a structured and thoughtful timetables for each class prep to year 6, and they're very different. The needs of a prep and year 1 class are very different to year 6. So that's credit to teachers for putting that in place, and also actioning feedback from parents, which has been good. I think the learning support programs, the smooth transition, and they're probably, along with our specialists, it's the hardest to replicate, that one-to-one work that they do. But again, credit to Mrs. Lou Drummond and the Reading Recovery. She has students reading to her for their 30-minute sessions 4 times a week. So she's been able to facilitate that. The small group literacy sessions that Miss Bolton's been working with across our 4, 5 and 6 groups, and also our learning aides who have been sort of guides on the side during lessons, and I know that you've had some in your Year 3
Yes,
lessons.
I sure have. It's lovely to have them doing
And-
what they do best.
And assisting the students, but then also going back and working individually with students post those lessons, which has been fantastic. I think prior to starting the remote learning, and certainly it was, as I said, it was all new to us and nothing to reference, but we've been networking with independent or heads of independent schools and getting feedback from them on best practice. I think ideally our program has to be contextual to our junior school students and fit the needs of our families as well. So I think that certainly has to be part of that smooth transition. I think the balance between technology and paper-based resources is really important. We do essentially have a one-to-one program at the junior school, but we do use technology in our day-to-day teaching as a tool. It's not a go-to.
And I must say it's nice the children having that choice, because some of mine will write straight on their screen in notebook. Others are happy to print some things out and do them with a pencil. So it's great that they've got that choice as well. That's been really positive.
Yeah, and getting that balance with screen time, I guess, as well. I know a number of the grades, Prep Year 1 and Year 5, have had pickups of paper-based materials just to get that balance as well, and that balanced week as we go through with our Specialist Wednesdays. I think also our Early Learning Centre have done a terrific job of providing online programs for their ELC3 and ELC4 students. The packs that they've sent home, the Regio-based packs, have been fabulous. The work that's come back in from those, and I viewed that today at the Early Learning Centre with some of the displays that have gone up with the clay work and the rainbows and the monster themes. It's amazing. It has really been amazing. So I thank the staff for that, because that was always going to be a very, very challenging transition from the Regio-based play program, which is very social, to being able to get that work home. But the parents, Mrs. O'Brien apparently has become a YouTube star with her book reading. They have a private YouTube channel with stories that are fairly regular, and I know the students have really enjoyed that. So there's still a buzz even though we're remote.
That's right. I know my class loves story time too.
Bernadette, you've got a real passion for student wellbeing, and of course you're on our staff wellbeing committee as well. Do you have some advice for our junior school parents around the sort of with an umbrella of wellbeing?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say what an amazing job you are all doing. The support you're giving to us and your children is fantastic, and we couldn't do it without you. But while we're saying that, the encouragement that you give to your children, please remember to be kind to yourself. You need to take breaks and have some time for yourself as well. And, I know we're all trying to get everything done and we think we need to finish everything, but, it's okay if you don't. Some days things just don't work out, and that's okay. So no beating yourself up about it, just doing the best that you can, and that's all that we can ask.
Great advice, and I think that anxiety is really important. And I think there's a degree of anxiety in the community generally with COVID-19. But I think if we, as you say, that lovely advice about being good to each other and being there for your children, I think also really focusing on those core subjects and getting those done well. And that sometimes just means reading with your children at home.
That's exactly right. And taking the time to get involved with things with them. I know my class had a task and inquiry today to make a worm farm. And, I've had beautiful photos sent in of their worm farms and their dirty hands. And it's just lovely to see other people at home getting involved in things that normally they'd just be doing with their classmates.
And you're not expecting perfection for every task that's submitted, I'm assuming?
No, practice makes perfect. So, we'll just keep doing things over and over. But no, and there's different degrees of things. We're working in shorter time frames now with lots of breaks to get through our remote learning structure. So it's, obvious that sometimes you're not going to get things finished. So no, we can't expect perfect. We can just expect your best.
And I know a feature of a lot of the timetables is those brain breaks and giving children that time to just freshen up, I guess, between sessions. And that's been a fantastic feature of those timetables.
And look, the lovely thing about those brain breaks, Stephen, is that they can be very different for everyone. Some children might just need to sit and read one day. Someone might just need to take a break and have a piece of fruit. Someone might need to go and run around the house. But it's up to the individual what they need at the time, and they can make those choices, which has been really good for their learning as well.
Fantastic.
So Stephen, you're a parent of a prep, a Year 7 and a Year 12. How are you going with remote learning?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's certainly a challenge with a silver lining. I've been spending mornings 9 through half 12 with my prep daughter, and I must give a shout out to Sharon Kelly, but also all of the teachers, Peter Alexander, Penny Callan, Simone Bradman. Those early years. Terrifically difficult to send a remote learning program home, but the staff have done an incredible job. So yes, I've been working with the prep student, and I remember in my third year of teaching I had a prep class, and all those memories are flooding back. Age certainly equals attention span, so I'm finding that out quickly. But look, I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to work with Annika, to sit and watch her learning and the process that takes place. But I've also had to, I guess, have a degree of trust with my older students, older children, and the senior campus staff have done a fabulous job with the structure of their program, and certainly my two are working independently, which is a fantastic byproduct of the remote learning. So having that attention to the prep and having the trust that the older students are doing their work. So the remote learning has really opened my eyes to how she's learning. And I think that's a massive positive. And I really hope parents have found that too, that time that we wouldn't normally have if we were in a normal term, we wouldn't have had that opportunity.
I think that's been one of the biggest comments I have heard when I've been speaking to the parents and when they've been working in our classrooms at the moment too, is even though they're staying at home through not their own choice, they have found it really rewarding that they are getting to share the learning with their children, something that they wouldn't normally get to do. So that's been really positive that we're all sharing that together. And I must say that independence of children is really coming to the fore at the moment. I've just been so impressed by the way children have risen to that.
They certainly have. And I guess, question without notice, do you see our parent-teacher interviews changing a little bit with parents having that opportunity to sit and watch that learning take place?
Who knows? Anything's possible. We're open to anything, really.
I've also I guess also found time to devote to when to support and when not, and to independently allow them to work and then to step in. So yeah, that's certainly been, as a parent, a challenge.
Yeah, and I think that is a really hard thing. You are tempted to just jump in and help them, straight away, but you do have to give them that time to just take the time to think about something, because some students need more thinking time than others. So I will just add to my tips. Please don't do the work for students. By all means, help them, but just give them that time to think and work it out for themselves.
And just to finish on that note, the ability of our preps now to, and I've been watching remotely, I guess, in the literacy, numeracy and inquiry lessons to log on, to navigate a calendar, to open a meeting, to post questions. Just incredible
I know, it's
upskilling.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. We've had some questions that came through our parent survey that we did a couple of weeks ago. We had over 70 families, junior school families, that responded to that survey. We'll look to do that in a couple of weeks as well, and we'll also, and I'll work with Bernadette to look at doing a student survey around wellbeing in the next couple of weeks, just to gauge how we're going with that remote learning. But certainly some questions that came out of that survey, and one of the questions that came up quite a bit was around feedback. So if I sort of said to Bernadette, how could you talk around how feedback might be given to children in the remote learning landscape?
So just like within the classroom, you can't correct or comment on every single piece of work. Sometimes it's verbal, it's not always a written comment, but certainly you have those discussions, and nothing's really changed in that manner. We can still discuss a piece of work with a child, and I know a lot of children are still emailing their work into me when they're not posting it in their notebook, and so I always return with feedback on their work. I make sure I comment on something that they have done. Teachers are in the notebooks, we can still write on their work and put stickers and anything like we would normally do. So I think in a way maybe we're doing just as much, if not more, feedback, because we're constantly answering an email to a child, so you might just give them a bit more than answering their questions. So yeah, I think that side of things we're really doing well with.
And certainly feedback might look quite different at a prep level, right through to a 6. And I know that at a prep level, the parents have been encouraged to mark some of the work and just to tick off that it's been done. But that obviously in the fullness of time, that the class teacher will look at that work when it comes back in scrapbooks and the literacy and the numeracy.
And I must say, I'm getting a lot out of my small group meetings that I'm having. So, for example, reading groups, when there's only 4 or 5 students in the meeting, really gives them all a chance to share and give their ideas, and you're really getting a good opportunity to give them a lot of feedback in those sessions as well. So they've been really worthwhile.
Yeah, certainly timely, ongoing and relevant are the key words when it comes to that feedback as well.
Stephen, somebody wanted, or some parents wanted to know how you're monitoring the online behaviour of students.
Look, on the whole, it's been incredibly positive. I think the 2 words that jump out are respectful and responsible, and they're our expectations of our students. There's been a little bit of pushing boundaries, as one might expect, and children are certainly very adept at discovering the features of certain programs like Teams. But that's been a learning curve, and I have just watched a gradual, real improvement in that, particularly in our upper year students. So credit to the students when we've had to speak to individuals that they've modified behaviour, and that's been fantastic. Parent support and monitoring of that has also been really important.
I think that's what I've really noticed too. The children have responded really well to just a reminder that that's perhaps not the best choice to be making, and they do respond well. And and I think it was such a novelty being so new. They just want to play with everything and see what each button does. So they've been really good in just coming back to what they know is the right thing to be doing.
And I guess the reality too is that come week 1 of this term, it was close to 4 weeks since they'd seen their friends and socially interacted. So, and I know class teachers and yourself included are good at allowing them time for that. But then it's that turning that switch and the learning time and the focus then comes to the teacher and what's being delivered.
Yeah, and I think that's a part of the routines and things too. Like I know when they log on to meetings, they might be in a couple of minutes before, so they've got those few minutes to talk to each other before they know, at the start of the lesson we just change over to what it is we're talking about today.
Yeah. And having that patience, and anyone that's seen my assemblies the last couple of weeks will know that technology doesn't always work. So I think that, again, that's been a byproduct as well as the upskilling, the IT upskilling. I think the patience that the children are showing with technologies. I think we had a Tuesday there where nothing worked on Teams. And
I know, and if we were in a normal assembly, we'd just say, excuse me, Mr. Nelson, can't see that. But now you're sort of sitting and thinking, how am I going to tell Mr. Nelson we can't see the PowerPoint he's talking about?
Rapid learning environment, one might say.
Parents would like to know if their child was struggling with the Specialist Wednesdays. How are they supposed to structure their day?
Good question. It was certainly a day that we earmarked from the start to be, I guess, a consolidating day, a time midweek where parents weren't pressured to be in meetings and literacy, numeracy, inquiry meetings and small group work. So it also gave classroom teachers the opportunity to touch base with families and touch base with students. So my advice around the Wednesdays would be, at the moment we're posting our Mandarin Chinese, our art, our music and our PE lessons. They can be accessed, I guess, at the children's leisure. And in other words, after they have a class meeting at 9 through 9:15 with their class teacher, and then they have the lessons available, if you like. Now, my advice would be that they might look at 2 of those lessons before their recess break and possibly 2 between recess and lunch. Some of the activities, I know Mrs. Cameron's artwork has been ongoing, so they've been asked to collect materials to photograph those and in readiness for the art lesson this week. So I think if they're doing those properly, it's about a half day's work. We then have our assembly, which is a great meeting time for us to share together on a Wednesday afternoon. So I think spacing that out, but also just, again, being kind to each other and having downtime if the children need it, and then recharging for that Thursday, Friday. And again, that was best advice from those independent schools we'd networked with.
And I think that flexibility is really important. Sometimes you just have to do what's best for your family on the day.
Great advice.
So, Stephen, when we return to school, what might that look like?
Look, I can really reassure our junior school parents that the school executive is meeting weekly and preparing a number of scenarios for continued remote learning or possible return. Obviously, everything's underpinned by the advice of the Victorian Chief Medical Officer, but we are well placed to facilitate a return if that happens this term, or continue remote learning. And I guess our staff are planning for remote learning through to the end of week 10 if needed. I think certainly the reporting, we've looked at our timelines. Most of our assessment for our semester 1 reports is summative, and at the moment remote learning's really providing a platform for formative assessment, so we've pushed that back into terms 3 and 4, so there won't be a formal report at the end of semester 1, term 2. We'll look to have parent-teacher interviews that will take place. Now, they could be remote, and I guess that's one of the things that Teams has thrown up as a possibility, and it's certainly a bit of serendipity there that we could certainly have a number of our interviews online, and parents are very familiar with using that as a platform, and that may help our parents that live out with Hamilton to come in. Obviously, NAPLAN testing for 3 and 5 has been cancelled for 2020. Our ICAS and PAT testing will still continue. It might get pushed back a little bit later in the year, depending on our return. We made the decision, and it was around looking after our parents in terms of the financial aspect to our major excursions, that we did cancel those. So our Year 6 Canberra trip, our Year 5 Sovereign Hill, and our Year 3 4 Melbourne Ipswich trip and Narra Court, but we could look at day excursions later in the year. So I guess that's something that will look quite different. And then you've got the housekeeping and around the house services. We'd dearly love to continue that. I think that's a really important point of difference in our school. So our house services will continue, and we'll try and run those in the second half of the year. Our class assemblies, we'll still allocate time for those, and that's an important time for our parents to come and share the learning in our school. School photographs will be pushed back to later in the year, things like cross country. So they're all on the table for us to be creative, I guess, with our calendars, but certainly, you know, when we do return, it's going to be a rich time and an enjoyable time for our cohort. Probably now, just to wrap up, I'd really like to first of all thank the students, and I know that you said an incredible job that they're doing, for their commitment to the program. I think those college values of respect and resilience and optimism are just shining through.
Yep,
and
amazing.
So credit to our students. A big thank you to our parents for your ongoing support of the remote learning of the students and of the staff. Your feedback is really important. We're here to support you. We're genuine in our open door policy. So please, if you're having issues, if you're needing clarification, that we're here to help with that. Thank you also to Susan Bradbeer and Andrew Hurst for their support of the Junior School Remote Learning Program. We've worked really closely with them in its conception, and they've been very, very supportive in the delivery of that program, of the staff and the students. Thank you, Bernadette, for this evening, and also thank you to the staff of the Junior School, the admin, the IT, the maintenance.
Yes, I was going to say, let's thank all of the staff, because they have been so supportive of each other. Everyone's always at the end of an email or a call, so it's been great to support each other.
So please continue the excellent job that you're doing, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.